up, Hero Stock Nation?
My tears are weak, but I don't give a damn. There are answers that I seek that make me who I am. Every day the sun comes up to find me driving on. The battle did not end for me because I made it home. There are times my feet are tired and I must find my knees, and I call for resupply. Father, help me please. There are 22 a day that choose not to survive, but I know inside of me something's still alive. In the garden where I lose myself, planting seeds of hope, a new life for myself. In the garden, watered with my tears, for all of those I lost, and all of those not here. In the garden, my warrior garden, my warrior garden. So you can find peace. It just takes some time. When you plant your thoughts of war, it helps to clear your mind. Seeds of hope, a new life for myself. In the garden, watered with my tears, for all of those I've lost, and all of those not here. In the garden, my warrior garden, my warrior garden.
Our guest today is Malachias Gaskin, author of A Warrior's Garden, a therapeutic guide to living with PTSD. Malachias is the founder of Warfighter Gardens, a nonprofit that uses gardening as a therapeutic tool for veterans and first responders. And he also runs the Warrior's Garden, a family-owned organic farm. Malachias joined the Indiana Army National Guard at just 18 years old, serving both as a combat medic and an infantryman. In 2006, he entered the active army as a combat medic and went on to serve 8 more years, including 28 months deployed to Iraq during the surge in Operation New Dawn. After being medically retired for PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and other service-related injuries, Malachias settled in Columbia, Tennessee, then later in Florida, where he now resides. Today, he continues to serve through advocacy, music, and helping others heal by connecting with the land. Please join me in welcoming Malachias Gaskin. Malachias, my friend, hey, we've done this once before. It's been a while.
Yeah.
How are you?
Not bad. How are you doing, buddy?
You know, I'm just getting over this cold here, and I got to tell you, I'm stumbling through the words here, and I'm sorry if I kind of messed up. Is there anything you want to add to that intro?
So I don't have the farm anymore. Because we moved to Florida, so I had the farm in Tennessee. But other than that, no, everything is like it's great. Like I ended up going to using my GI Bill. I got a bachelor's in psychology. I've tried 3 different times to do a master's program in something, and just working full time and doing that doesn't work. So it's like it's crazy. Like life has just been nuts. And then I was offered this amazing opportunity to take a job in Florida, where I had always promised my wife that I would get her to Florida eventually. She kind of went to Tennessee begrudgingly. And I made her a deal that I would find a way to get her to Florida. And so I did.
And now you're there.
Yeah.
How long have you been out there for?
I got here May 19th. The family got here just before Thanksgiving.
Wow. Well, there's a lot to cover. I know the garden itself. You had a video that you shot that you shared with us the last time of the music.
Yep.
But the focus, I am really intrigued. I actually purchased a copy of your book, A Warrior's Garden, and I started to read it not too long ago. I'm up to the 4th chapter, and there's so much in it that I would really like to ask you about and share with our audience. The sections that I started to read about was my story, which was basically your story from you.
Right.
How music played a role in your healing. Then you talk about the garden, possibly, the garden that you left behind, perhaps, I'm not sure. And the importance of faith. But, let's go ahead and talk about, the beginnings, before you wrote the book. Maybe you can kind of tell us really what you were thinking of before you thought the book, and why the book you thought was needed.
So it's funny. It kind of happened on accident. And I was going through a medical retirement board, and I was actually writing music with a buddy. He's actually my producer now, but we were writing together and working on some songs. And I had a guy reach out to me, from Nashville, who was like, he ended up becoming my publisher, but he reached out to me through a mutual friend and was like, "Hey man, I saw a statement that you had made on this post, and I really like to talk to you about it, blah, blah, blah." And so him and I got on a phone call, and we just discussed all the different things. Cause at that point I had started trying all kinds of different things, nutrition, transferring off of medications onto organics, trying to find a holistic route, right? Like, focusing on music, focusing on gardening, focusing on physical activities, family activities, things like that, creating a therapeutic modality within my home. Right. And so it took me to a place where him and I were talking about it. And then we put together this thing, and I said, "Hey, look, I'm in the Army. And so in order to do this, I think we have to probably submit this to PAO." And so I got him the contact information, and they submitted this whole plan to PAO. And so when PAO, which is Public Affairs Office, when they got it, they submitted it to the head Army one, which I don't know if it's DC or wherever. And it took them almost the entire prep time, because we were scripting, we were doing all this stuff. We had booked a studio to go record songs. We were actually going to record the music live as part of the documentary. And literally the week before the documentary they were going to get on the plane and fly down here. They were getting ready to go purchase their tickets. And I get called from, the building one on post, and they were like, "Hey, you need to come talk to this colonel at PAO." And I was like, "All right." So I go, and I go, they said, "Tell me this story. Like, what's going on?" And I explain, what we're doing, why we're doing it, all this stuff. And he's just like, "Dude, this is it's a full bird colonel." He's like, "Dude, this is so cool." I'm like, "Thank you, sir." And he was like, "I can't let you do it." And I was like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "I can't let you do it, man. You're in a med board. Like, you actually have a policy Army wide where you can't go on record on camera. You can't do interviews, none of that stuff." And I'm like, "Sir, they're coming in a week. We submitted this 6 months ago." And he was like, "I know. And I'm so sorry. I was just made aware of this morning." And so I was like, "I got to go," because they're trying to buy plane tickets, and we're not allowed to bring our cell phones in this building. And he's like, "No, go. I appreciate it." He was, "Let me know what you find out." He was, "I'm really sorry, man." And I took off. I didn't even say goodbye. Like, I just took off. Right. I got to my van, and I called Robbie, and I was like, "Hey dude, like, it's a squash. Don't buy tickets. I'll call you tomorrow. I don't know what to do. So I'll just call you tomorrow." And so at this point, like I said, we were already talking about all the things I was doing with Robbie, right? The music, the gardening, the medication, the nutrition, the family stuff, all those things, my faith, everything. And so the next day he goes, "Hey, do you have time to talk?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we got on the phone. He was like, "You should write a book." And I was like, "Dude, I am a high school dropout with a GED. Okay. I'm a sergeant in the Army. No one's going to read that." And he's like, "Just write it, man. Like, if you write it, I'll publish it." I'm like, "Okay." So I literally wrote a book out of spite, because I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm going to write it and no one's going to buy this thing. It's going to suck. And I wrote it. And from that time till now, from the time we published it in 2013 till now, It's been sold in 11 countries. I've traveled to China to speak, paid for by the Chinese government, about using agriculture as a way to mitigate suicide. Um, there are vet centers through the VA all across the country that buy it in boxes of 20, and they keep it on their shelves. I've got nonprofits all over the country that will buy it. And I make deals with them where it's like, if you buy it, it's half price. You know what I mean? And I'll make sure that you get the full amount, like whatever you want, but you have to buy it directly through me, and I'll get it for you at half price. So they don't have to pay the full amount. But the book was really just about documenting me trying to find a different path, because I sat down. I mean, when I started therapy with a therapist in the Army, I went through 7 of them in a 3-year period.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one I had, like, all she did was listen and laptop, and then, all right, see you next week. You know what I mean? And it was just like, I didn't get, for me, it didn't get me anywhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and so I got more out of trying to do things on my own, which created kind of its own modality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
before we go too far, because I want to kind of parse what it is that you've included in your book. And I did, like I said, I picked up a copy of the book. I started to read it, and it's a real easy read. It's very conversational. It's kind of like I'm talking to you, and I can hear your voice as I read through it. Each chapter. Go ahead.
One of my college professors, my English professor, actually said that, because I gave him a copy, and he said, "Dude, this is a very conversational tone." Mm-hmm. He was like, "It's like you're in the room reading it to the person reading it," and he goes, "And that's crazy. So that's a very difficult way to write." And I was like, "That's the only way I know how. Like, it just the way it came out.
This is how you speak."
And
it flows really well.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I'm looking forward to reading the rest of it. I'm into the first 4 chapters, so I want to kind of delve into each of the chapters. First of all,
sure.
What I really enjoyed was the fact that each chapter opens with a quote, and I'm not sure where you got these quotes from, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So the quotes at the beginning all come from, like, very, very wise people, like Lao Tzu. I get all kinds of Bruce Lee. Like, there's a whole bunch of them. Some of them I chose. Some of my publisher found that worked best with those chapters, but he just wanted to have kind of because the whole purpose, the original book cover, which my wife kind of concept was it was a samurai knelt down in a forest, and the samurai was black and white, and the forest was in color, right? And what that was to signify was the feeling of being there, but being cut off from your surroundings, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we had that original cover, my publisher was like, "Hey, man, I'm going to send you all these quotes. I want you to pick the ones you like best." He picked a few. I picked a few, just based on what chapters they were covering and what they were involved with.
It definitely sets the tone. But let me dive into chapter 1, which is my story.
Sure.
What that chapter is covering is that you're giving us an idea, first of all, about your youth, your family business, some of the things that you did to support the family business, and how it eventually led you to enlisting. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that first chapter.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is if you're looking at the map, it's the upper right armpit of Indiana, like 20 minutes from Ohio, an hour from Michigan. And I was raised in a family where my dad was a veteran. He bragged about it and talked about it and really just like pushed on it. And then his father was a veteran, and his father's father was a veteran, and all the way back. And according to my grandfather, like from the Revolutionary War on, he can trace our lineage in the military, straight line, in our straight family line, not the arched one, but the straight line back, right? One male in every branch of the family, and every line has served, right, all the way down. And so I didn't want to be the one at that point to break the tradition. So like when I dropped out of high school, the last day of school, my junior year. And from 10 years old on, I had been a full-time landscaper every summer. We owned, janitorial company where we cleaned restaurants and office buildings. We had a used furniture store and a Mexican restaurant. I mean, he tried everything, but the landscape was really the bulk of it. And so from 10 years old on, I was a landscaper. At 13, I was a supervisor. At 13, I hired my first employee and fired my first employee. And he was a 35, 40-year-old man with a family. And I'm like, "You're fired, go home." At 13, right? Not understanding the whole dynamic of it. But then at 18, I dropped out, and then I went to go see a recruiter, and he was like, "Do you have a GED or a diploma?" I went to Marine Corps recruiter first, and he was like, "Do you have a high school diploma?" I was like, "No, I dropped out." He's like, "We can't touch you, man. We don't take GEDs or non diplomas." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, and so I walked down the hall because all of them were in the same building, right? Mm-hmm. So I walked down the hall to the Air Force, and they laughed at me, and I went to the Navy, and they said they can't touch me. And I went to the Army, and they said that they're limited on GEDs. I would have to get a GED first, then they only take so many per year. And then I was kind of defeated, and I started to walk out, and because I didn't want to be the first one not to serve, Mm-hmm. And the Marine Corps guy came out, and my uncle was a career Marine Corps. Like he's an amazing guy. He retired. He was a Vietnam veteran, retired Marine. He was a first sergeant. And this Marine Corps recruiter comes out. He's, "Hey man, you've been to every office in the building?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "You're serious about this?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Go talk to the National Guard." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "National Guard." He goes, "It's the same as the Army. It's a reserve thing. You do it on the weekends, blah, blah, blah." He was like, "But they take GEDs." He's like, "So go talk to them." And he even wrote the address down for me. So I went to the National Guard recruiter, and he was like, "Hey, let's take this little pre-test." And I took it, and he's like, "Yeah, you're good. Let's go set you up for the thing." He goes, "Let me see your diploma." I was like, "I don't have one. I'm a dropout." He was like, "Do you have your GED?" And I was like, "Not yet." He goes, "If I pay for your GED, will you take it?" "Sure." Mm-hmm. And he does I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, man." So he drove me down to the career center where I signed up for it. He paid for it. I went back, took the test, I passed, and then I brought him the results, and he was like, "All right, man, let's go to MEPS." Mm. And so I went to MEPS, took my ASVAB, and he was like, "You can do whatever you want." I'm like, "Well, what's the highest job I can take with my ASVAB score?" He's like, "Medic." And I was like, "All right, I'll do it." And so I joined the National Guard as a medic.
How old were you when you joined?
I shipped out at 19.
Okay. All right.
It took a year. I had to wait a year from the time I dropped out at 18 to actually taking the GED test.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of the family business, was that a choice to go ahead and leave that, or was this something?
Well, it was perfect because I shipped out in January. Or no, wait, sorry. I enlisted in January. I shipped out in February, and we weren't snow plowing just yet. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, "Yeah, it's perfect. You'll be gone for 2 months. You'll come back and go to work." Mm-hmm. And so, which was really like my dad's mentality was like, "When are you going to work here?" So I took off and went to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I did 2 months there, and I graduated, and I came home, and I went to work. And then I was supposed to ship out in December for AIT, and somebody in basic training got hurt and couldn't ship. So I got an early school date. So I went in September of 94 to Fort Sam Houston and went to AIT and graduated AIT in December and came home. And then I was in the National Guard for 9 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a stretch that 9 years. I mean, you came into some people who you are even friends with today. I mean, these are people who were mentoring you, and you gained a lot out of that. Yeah. What were some of the things that you had learned while you were in there that you still apply today?
So time management was a big one. And then I had a sergeant. He retired as command sergeant major, but he was my platoon sergeant when I first came in, Charlie Cox. He always had these little nuggets of wisdom. Like he was just, I don't even think he understands how at times, like how wise he was, you know what I mean? With the things he would say. But like at one point I was like struggling with my first marriage, and I was struggling with my job and, working for my dad and like, trying to figure everything out. And I was taking it out on people in the military and my civilian life and all that. And he was like, "Hey dude, like act, don't react." He's like, "Stop, take a step back, breathe, look at what you're doing and what needs to be done. Handle one thing at a time. You can't handle more than one at a time. Nobody can actually multitask. It's not true. Like it's a fallacy. Like the more you divide your attention, the less you're giving your focus to those things." And I was like, "Oh, like that was just the one of them, right?" Like he was just brilliant in the way he would say it, just made it make sense. Like, and I struggle. Even today, I still struggle with that thought process because I still try to, as an infantryman for the longest time, you're taught to react to contact, react to this, react to sniper fire, react to indirect fire. As a soldier, you're taught to do all those things. So it's like hard to not react when it's not a muscle memory. You know what I mean? Because when it's muscle memory, you are acting. It's less of reaction. It's more of action. So, but Charlie was amazing. I had a buddy, Mike, that when I went through my second divorce, And I was struggling with that one really, really bad. He came in, was kicking in my door on a weekly basis, going, "Come on, we're gonna go eat, take a shower, let's go." And he would make, because I wasn't eating, like I lost 35 pounds in a month, and he was like, go get a shower, we're going to eat. And he made sure that I was eating at least 2-3 times a week. You know what I mean? He came over and took time out of his own life with his own marriage and his own kids, and was like, let's do it. So like there's a bunch of guys that just like, I'm still really close to them today.
When it came to transitioning out, how did things end with your service?
So the National Guard, I had reenlisted. I did 6 years. I reenlisted for 3 more. I got picked up for a platoon sergeant position in a medical support battalion. So I went from medic to infantry back to medic. And I went down there, and I was supposed to go to the second phase of ANOC, which is the Advanced Non-Commissioned Officers course, which I think now it's SLC, I think it is. I can't remember what they call it now. But I went, so I was supposed to go, and my slot got canceled because I got into a fight with my first sergeant, and he decided he was going to cancel that. So basically the E7 position that I was sitting in and the rank that I had just put on was getting taken back. And I was like, well, if they're taking it, I'm just going to get out. So I got out. And at that point, I was like, I started working on my music, and I started a band, and we started playing all over the Midwest, all over Indiana, northern Indiana, and everywhere. And it was just, we were kind of blowing up. And then my dad died. I got out in 2003. My dad died in 2004. And when he died, the banks kind of came in and said, hey, we're taking everything. Come to find out, he had the money tied up in ways that like he was going to go to prison had he lived much longer anyway. Like he would have probably spent most of the rest of his life, because he was already in his 60s. He probably would have spent the rest of his life in prison.
Malachias, can you share a story from your book that illustrates what we're talking about?
Yeah. So in my first chapter, which is about my story, about how it all began and everything got started, you know, it's like, I'll start here. It's in January of 2002. I was offered a platoon sergeant position in the 113th Med Support Battalion as a treatment platoon sergeant. And it was a no-brainer for me. In fact, Charlie Cox, what we were telling you about earlier, right? He'd always said that he would never say no to a transfer if that transfer was about advancement, right? And so to me, I was a staff sergeant, and this was a sergeant first class position. So it was like, at that point, I couldn't say no. And it was my chance to be promoted to sergeant first class and to have my own platoon to lead. Charlie and I discussed it for a few weeks, and he told me I would be stupid not to take it since I was ready. And to me, that was huge. Like I really leaned in on him on just connecting with that kind of thing. Like, am I ready to do this? Right. And when he kind of said, yes, you're ready to go do it, it made the world of difference to me. So isn't it great when someone you look up to and who has mentored you tells you that you are ready for the next steps? It's absolutely amazing. I took the position. I led my platoon for a year. When I finally decided that I was done and I didn't feel like I wanted to make the Army a career anymore, I left the Army National Guard after 9 years of service. And for the longest time, I never thought twice about it. After my father passed away, our family business was absorbed by the banks and lien holders, and it wasn't a really great feeling. For 2 years, I struggled to find work. I didn't want to be a landscaper anymore, but landscaping in the Army was all that I knew. I was finally at a crossroads, and my wife, Paige, and I, our 3 children, were living in a single wide trailer with my mother. I was working at a truck stop as a cashier for $6.75 an hour. And mind you, I was accustomed to making $18 to $20 an hour, plus company truck, company credit card, company checkbook, all the things, right? My wife and I discussed it. We prayed about it, and we ended up back in the Army active duty as a medic, and I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia. And I was stationed there from April of 2006 to March of 2014.
That really illustrates, where your life was at that point in time. And like I had mentioned before, reading this really is like talking with you. And, now for you to go ahead and read that, thank you so much. And as you close this chapter, and it really is, it sets the groundwork, if you will, on some really important decision making that both you and your wife made. Can you talk about how you closed this chapter? Yeah.
So we were literally at my mom's house, which was a single wide trailer in a trailer park. It was a 2-bedroom. My kids were staying in one room. We were sleeping on the couch. And I don't even remember how it happened, but my wife did all the paperwork. We ended up on food stamps. We ended up on Medicaid. We were getting all the public assistance. And I was like, so I had one vehicle, which was a Geo tracker with a leather roof. And I would drive 2 miles down to the gas station where I worked, which was a big, really, really large truck stop. Not large like Buc-ee's or whatever, but it was a large truck stop. And then I would, drive home every day. And I took every shift I could get, first shift, second shift, third shift, didn't matter. I took everything that I could get. and I was paying child support for my oldest. And so when they caught up to that, over 2/3 of my check was gone every week to pay back support and current support. Right. And so at that point we're living, like I said, we're living on food stamps. We're getting food from food pantries and churches and everything. And I just kind of, I said, you know, as a man and as a husband, I sat there and just kind of like, I'm not providing. Like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? I'm sleeping on the floor in my mom's house. Like I'm bumming $5 from a friend to get a pack of smokes. You know what I mean? Like this is crazy. And so, you know, we sat down and we talked about it, and I went to the store with the last bit of cash I had one week to get some coffee creamer. And this guy just goes, "Hey man, you ever thought about joining the military?" And I looked at him, I was like, "I'm former Army dude. Like I'm good." You know, and this is 04 or 05. Right. And, he gave me his card, and he was, at the time that, you know, they were using civilians and veterans as recruiters because they were needing people so bad because we were in the middle of the war, you know, at the beginning of the onset. And, I went home and showed the card to my wife, and she goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, I was shocked that she was even receptive to it. So we prayed about it and we talked about it. And then I went to the recruiter and said, "What do we got to do?" And so we did. We went through all the steps, went back to MEPS. Everything was good. And then they were like, "You're going to go through warrior transition, which is in New Mexico because you'd been out for so long. So anything 3 years or more, you have to go through a transition program, which is basically a 30-day abridged basic training." Mm-hmm. It's like weapons qual, PT, land nav, like all the main points, right? And so you got done, and then you ship out, and they give you your order. You get your orders there, and you ship out. But yeah, we just, at that point, it was like I didn't want to cut grass for anybody anymore. I was doing music, and I was good at music, but it wasn't paying the bills. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't making a living at it. And I knew with the military, at least with the military, I was getting 3 cots and a hot, 3 hots and a cot. My kids were going to go to school on post. We were going to get housing. We were going to get medical benefits and all that. So at that point, we prayed about it, and we realized that's it. Like, this is what we got to do. And I was there 11 months, and I was on a plane to Iraq. And I was in Iraq for 15 months. Came home for 9 months, back on a plane for 13 months, and then came home and then was on orders to go to Afghanistan. And that's when they were like, "Hey, you're going to be medically retired." And they put me through a medical retirement board.
What prompted that?
So I was scheduled to deploy to Afghanistan with my unit. And at that time I was a medic, but I was with the Army band, as a vocalist. And one of my soldiers and I got into an argument, and I turned and punched the door, which was a glass door. And when I hit it, it exploded. And my commander said, "Go sit in my truck." And I was like, he's taking me down. I'm going to go to jail. Like I'm going to get Article 15. Like I swear my brain went, right. Because I'm already they're already telling me, because I don't have an EMT license anymore. Like big armies, like you're getting chaptered, we're kicking you out. And so I punched this door, and I was scheduled to deploy. Like all this was happening at once. So he drives me over to the head of behavioral health on post as a civilian psychiatrist, and, sat down with her and talked for an hour. And she goes, "Well, I don't know what you want me to do." And I was like, "I don't know what to do. Like, I'm about to get kicked out after all these years. I've done all this stuff, and I'm going to have nothing, no benefits, nothing, all over the fact that I don't have an EMT license." She goes, "Yeah, but you're not telling me what I need to hear." And I stood up and I go, "Well, you tell me what the F you want to hear, because this is not a game. This is my life." And she goes, "Tell you what, come back on Monday." And I was like, or Friday. This is on Thursday. She goes, "Come back tomorrow. Come back on Friday." She's like, "We'll go over this. I'm gonna take your entire packet. I'm gonna give it to a colleague of mine, and if he says you should be med boarded, I won't question him. You're gonna be med boarded. Otherwise, prepare to chapter." And the chapter would have been from that day would have been 30 days. I'd have been out. Mm-hmm. And so I went home. I was like, whatever. And I just stormed out. And my commander, we drove back to the unit, and he's like trying to calm me down. He's a great dude, but he didn't understand. He'd never been deployed to combat. Like he didn't know like what it's like to do all that. Right. So it's like, at that point he was like, like, just try to calm down and go home and spend time with your family. We'll go back over tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I'm like, "Whatever, sir. Like, whatever. I'm getting chaptered. It's what it is, And I went home, and my wife and I talked about it. And then the next morning I get up and I go to work, and he was like, "Hey, come on, I'm like, "I don't want to go. I just start my chapter." He's like, "No, we're going to go talk to her." So we get over there, and I sit down, and she comes in the office, and she goes, "Well, so your med board's going to start on Monday." And I go, "Wait, what?" She's like, "Mr. Gaskin, I gave your information to my colleague who I've known for 40 years. And within 10 minutes, he was on the phone with me, cussing me up one side and down the other about, why did you ever deploy a second time? You should have never been deployed. When you got flagged, you should have been med boarded.
Mhm.
because I got flagged for deployment, and then they medicated me and deployed me. And she was just like, so we're going to go ahead and start your med board on Monday. And so, it was what should have been a 8 to 12 month process was 2.5 years, because they were having a hard time finding my National Guard medical records and putting them all together with my active duty records. And it was the only thing that held me up because everything else was finished. And so I called a buddy of mine who was a Sergeant Major Craig Lehman. And I was like, hey, man, I got to find these medical records. And we got on a 3-way phone call with Medical Retirement Board, or with the historical branch of the National Guard in Indiana. And she was just like, where do I send them? And I had them that day. So.
Now, I know in your book that you talk about PTSD. Is this what we're talking about right now?
Yeah. I was medically retired primarily for PTSD, traumatic brain injury, arthritis, bursitis, tendonitis, hearing loss, ringing in the ears, tinnitus, and a couple others like GERD, like heartburn, other stuff like that.
And your family, which you also write about during this time. It was an intense time.
Yeah. I had one time I wrote about in my book where, we were sitting at the dinner table and I don't know what was going on. My son did or said something and I just lost it. And I started slapping my hand on the table and like screaming and yelling at him at the top of my lungs. And the more that I yelled, I started feeling my throat just tense up. Right. And at that point I was like, I hit the table again and I stood up and I walked out in the garage and he's bawling his eyes out. And it just made me angry that he was crying. And I got out to the garage and my wife came out a couple minutes later and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, no, take me to the hospital. That's when I knew that there was something seriously wrong. Cause like I was in my head, I was screaming at myself to shut up, stop yelling. And I couldn't stop. I was just getting louder. So my kids went through it. My daughter stubbed her toe and screaming. I was like, what the hell are you yelling? I'd scream at her, cause in my brain, it's like, like I watch dudes get shot or blown up and they're not even crying. But why are you screaming over a toe? And, not putting together that, everybody's threshold for pain and for mental pain and for physical pain is different, but yeah, and so I started going. That's when I started going to therapy and started seeing a social worker on post, and honestly feeling like I'm getting nowhere, And then we started watching all these documentaries on Netflix about food and nutrition and diet. And I'm like, well, if that works for physical, can it work for mental? And started trying to put those dots together. And that's when that journey started of trying to find different things because I was sick of the medicine. Like I was getting fat. Like, I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. Like I was at one point I got to 260 pounds, you know what I mean? And it was just like, and I couldn't take the weight off. The medication was horrible. And then I was on medication for the side effects of those medications and medications for those side effects and then medications for this. And it was just over medicated. Like it's crazy.
The last couple of paragraphs of chapter 1 talks about the 3 things in life that helped you deal. You arrived at that point after everything that you just shared with us, with the issues with the medication, the confrontations with your family, and everything about yourself. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the choice at that point that you made for those 3 areas that were of great deal of help for you.
Yeah. So, and this is something that I do for others too. Like I help them designate their 3 pieces, right? So for me, it really started with my faith, my music, and with gardening. And with my music, it wasn't so much about me writing it at the time as it was about finding playlists for different aspects of my life, right? Finding a playlist for when I was angry that would bring me out of that moment, finding playlists that would help me fall asleep, playlists that would distract me in public, just for different things, right? Because I found that, when you're a kid, you try to be all cathartic and you think you're all smart and you're like, I'm ticked off. I'm going to go listen to Metallica or I'm going to listen to, all these heavy bands that are angry all the time. And all it did was keep you in that mindset. Right. So you got to find something to break that cycle. And so that's what I did. I tried to make playlists that were based on that. And I even went through like to an extreme of it where I took out everything that wasn't a Christian artist out of my playlist. And I only listened for about 2 years to anything that was Christian. Like I didn't listen to anything that wasn't Christian. Christian metal, Christian rap, Christian hip hop, Christian rock, pop, all of it. Like I listened to everything. And so then so my music and then gardening was like, we actually built 3 4-foot by 4-foot raised beds on our backyard on post. And the funny thing was I actually had a lady from the Balfour Beatty housing community come over when I was out pulling weeds one day in my garden. And she was like, oh, what is this? And I go, this is my PTSD garden. Blah, 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 blah. And I started yelling at her. She's okay. I was just checking. Sorry. And the funny thing was, like, they made everybody else, and I built gardens on post. That's where it started. I started building gardens on post for these people, like other soldiers and their families, inside their fenced in areas, right? And Balfour Beatty made them take them out. Right. They left mine alone because I yelled at the lady, but they made everybody else take theirs out. And then, my faith, like just really digging into what I believed, why I believed it, and how to apply it to my life. Not just to do it, but to do it for a reason, right? To do it because I knew it was going to make me better. And then I ended up converting to Messianic Judaism, which is basically Jesus. I'm Jewish, but I believe in Jesus. So it's like a Jewish version of Christianity. And then, and actually my music, I classify my music as a Messianic rock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, you have made some decisions about moving forward. And for as long as I have known you, and it's been a constant journey for you.
Yeah.
It
evolves too. It's crazy.
It's wonderful to hear. Well, listen, I know that we've got so much more in this book to talk about, but here's what I would like to suggest. I want to have you back.
Yeah.
And let's do a deeper dive on the things that you've included. I know music we've talked about before, but it'd be wonderful to talk about. I love the song that you co-wrote, you created and recorded specific to a Warrior's Garden. In fact, it's called a Warrior's Garden.
Yeah.
I love that video.
And I wrote that with another combat veteran, my buddy JT Cooper from Nashville. He was in Somalia during Black Hawk Down. And I hadn't written in a long time, and so I took the idea to him, and he sat down with it, and we wrote it. I just talked about what I wanted, and he wrote it. You know what I mean? So, but it was his words, my concept, and we went to the studio, and he let me record he's got his version of it. I've got my version of it. Mm-hmm. And he's been a really solid mentor. Like, he actually helped me a lot as well. Like, there was a point where I was in grad school, or I was getting ready to graduate undergraduate, and the Army or the GI Bill wasn't paying. I wasn't taking enough semester hours, so I wasn't getting my BH. And I made a comment about anybody hiring on Facebook, and he was like, "Hey, I got a spot. Do you need something?" And he called me, and he owns a plumbing company. And so I ended up going and working for him for the rest of the summer, just to pay my rent or my mortgage.
You come into some really talented and thoughtful and generous individuals.
Amazing people.
It's wonderful. In fact, you've done some work with me before in other podcasts and other workshops, and I am so appreciative of your time. Even today, just talking us through portions of your life that are in your book. And we have much more to cover. So would you come back?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's continue the story, the storytelling, and maybe even talk a little bit more about, some of the things that you're doing these days with, with writing, with music.
Yeah.
All right.
Just released a song. I did actually just released a song 2 days ago.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. It's called,
where can we find it?
It's on all the streaming networks. My producer, best friend, partner in crime, all that, like Josh Hudson, he's a sergeant first class. He's stationed in Okinawa, Japan. He writes the music, he sends it to me, I put the lyrics and vocals to it, and I send it back, and then he does the mixing and the mastering and the production and all of that.
Nice.
And I record it right here. Like, this is my closet is actually my vocal studio.
Makes it easy, doesn't it?
Yeah. And but yeah, he does all that. And so we released a song called Go Time. There's 3 of us on it. It's me on vocals and lyrics. Josh wrote the music, mixed it, mastered it, produced it, and then we have another Army buddy that we served with named Rory Ellis, who did the guitar solo over the bridge. He's unbelievable.
In terms of the book itself, I'm looking at the chapters. We have yet to tackle the garden,
Yep.
faith,
Yep.
music, nutrition. You've got a chapter called The Hidden Hero,
Hmm.
Our Own Worst Enemy, Trait Makers and more, the transition, and some closing thoughts, garden designs as well. There's a lot in this book. Where can we find the book?
Any online bookstore. So Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Amazon.com, Walmart.com, like any of the place where you can buy a book online, it's
Mhm.
available. You can get the Kindle version on Amazon. It is, so I actually had Michelle Rothgib, who is like she is like the known person, like who started the whole PTSD holistic therapy journeys. She was one of the first people ever to do it, and just finding her own path and documenting it, right? So like she did it, and then she read the book, and I met her online, and she read the book, and I sent her a copy of it, and she came back and told me like, this is like having a buddy in your pocket. Like, this is just, it's amazing. She's like, she's like, there's 25 chapters of information in the 9 chapters that are in the book.
Mhm.
It's like, it's so much information packed in such a small thing. Like, it's crazy.
I'm reading some of the reviews. They are so favorable. They talk so highly of what it is that you've included in your book from the personal experiences and sharing your thoughts. Highly recommended for those out there to explore this, to read it. I know I'm making my way through it as well too, and I've really enjoyed it as
Yeah.
well.
And it's recommended by Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, Army Rangers, um, actual therapists. Like, I mean, there's so many people. Like, it's actually taught in universities, that book. So there's I don't know what the school is, but I know that there's a school that has picked it up and they use it in their abnormal psychology program. And it's a required reading book. So
As we close, is there
yeah.
a section of your book that you would like to share with our audience that might apply to anything we've talked about, or maybe something for people to look forward to?
I'm going to say that the book created a concept. So like, for me, it was my faith, my music, and my gardening, right? And I realized that for some people, gardening's not going to do it, music's not going to do it, and they're not into spirituality or Christian, into what I believe, right? They might be Wiccan or atheist or agnostic or whatever, right? And so the book sparked, after I applied it to my own life for so long, it kind of sparked this concept of, instead of being faith, music, gardening, it was spiritual, creative, physical, right? So finding the 3 outlets, right? And the spiritual connection being that if you don't have a faith in any kind of higher power, that it's based on what is something that you connected that's bigger than you. Community, whatever it is, right? Nature, whatever, right? So find that spiritual connection, and that's your pinnacle, that's your focus. And then you have a creative aspect. Everybody does something that they like to do, that they're creative at. It's a mental task, right? And everybody has a physical task that if I came over and kicked in your door and you didn't shoot me, you would go, what do you want? Like, let's go do this. And that thing would be the thing that would always get you to leave the house, right? Whether that's gardening, whether it's going for a run, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's sailing or fishing or hiking or whatever it is, right? Like, there's a physical task that you enjoy that you would go do, and then finding out how to combine those 3 things, right? So now you've got your 3, right? You've got spiritual, creative, physical, and then you put the 2 together, and you put the 2 together, and you put the 2 together, right? So that's 6 different things that you can do. And then you can do all 3 at once, right? So you can find a way to incorporate all 3. So now you have 7 different coping tasks that you can do. So 7 days a week, right? So I take people, get a deck of cards, ace through 7, and you write what it is: faith, music, or whatever. For me, it was faith, music, gardening, and then faith with music, faith with gardening, gardening with music, and then all 3 together, right? Shuffle your little 7-card deck. That's your week. You flip those cards out. That's your week. And so every day you take 10 to 15 minutes to focus specifically on integrating a coping mechanism or coping plan into your daily routine. So that way, when the time comes, it's now muscle memory. You can pick from any of them.
Got to have you back, my friend. This
Appreciate
is a
it.
fascinating topic for sure. Here's what you need to know about the Roundtable, where heroes talk. It centers on authentic conversation with veterans, first responders, and supporters of the Hero Stock mission. Now, each week we share inspiring stories and open, honest discussions exploring a wide range of engaging and thought-provoking topics. Most episodes also feature live performances and an in-depth look at our guests' unique experiences and adventures. In 2025, we aired about, I think, 28 episodes, some of them with 2 guests, spotlighting musicians and songwriters from the country and the rock scene, also sports organizers and fans, poets and writers, creators of brews, salts and seasonings, beard care products, specialty guitar picks, you name it. It was on our list of people to talk with. 2026 is here, and it promises to be an even more exciting year. In case you didn't know it, Hero Stock Nation picked up another program, Song Sung True, A Veteran's View. It features conversations and performances with the men and women who served in our armed forces and explores personal stories, military experiences, and the profound impact that music and guitar have had on their lives. We often feature live performances of original songs. Enjoy this clip of my interview with Malachias Gaskin from April 2024.
And he was just like, no, seriously, write the book. And so I was like, all right, fine, whatever. So I wrote I wrote it out of spite to show him that it wouldn't do anything. And now it's been sold in 7 countries. I've traveled to China to speak about suicide prevention. Like, the Chinese government paid for me to come and speak about suicide prevention.
I've seen some of those presentations that you've done. There are a number of them too. Did you anticipate it would get the attention that it did?
I didn't think it was going to do anything. Honestly, I didn't. But it opened up the doors where I get to speak in front of other veterans and talk about my story and kind of let them, because a lot of times we just we feel isolated because we isolate ourselves, right? And so then we feel isolated, and then we're like, oh my God, someone else has the same experience as me. That's crazy.
Thank you for sharing that. We need to have you come back because there's more to that story, that book. It goes much deeper than this, but I don't want to forget about this last song that you've got planned for us. And I've got it written here somewhere. Well, let's see. It's No Doubt of Mine. And I remember you sharing, the background on that song with me, and I found it to be quite moving. And I have to tell you, this is a later release, right? This is something that's just recently come out, or getting ready to release. So this is, So what would you like to share with us about that song, No Doubt of Mine?
Well, I wrote this while I was actually in the G4B program. Week 2, I had all my teeth pulled and had implants installed, and ended up with I have all new shiny perfect teeth, right? But as I'm sitting home 3 days after surgery, this song just jumped in my head. And so I had to go, I went in the other room. I had just gotten my interface in the mail. So I got everything plugged in, and I wrote the lyrics in like probably 15, 20 minutes. And then I just sat down and started strumming, trying to find the pattern I wanted and all that stuff. I always write backwards. I come up with the lyrics and I'm like, I don't know what I want it to sound like. I got to figure out a melody. And so I did that. I came up with it and I recorded it 3 days post-surgery wearing temporary dentures. And so I recorded it and sent it to my buddy Josh, who I wrote the song Grind and the song Freedom with. And he was like, I want to be a part of this one. And I was like, okay, I need a track for it because that's all I've got. I can't play drums. I can't play any. And so it sounds like I got a chief in it, you know what I mean, on the demo version. So Josh created a backing track with guitar, bass, drums, keys, all of it. And I'm going to the studio this coming Sunday on the 14th to put down the professional vocals, get them to him so he can master and mix it and finish it. And then it's a Christian country song. It is a true story. It's the first song that I've written this way, but I wrote it during the program. Is that I found out at 13 years old that I was adopted by my mother. My father was my father, but my mom had adopted me. And my dad was just like, when I told him I wanted to learn to play guitar at 12 years old, he looked at me and said, no, son, mine's going to be the FAGGOT, right? And I was just like, Dad, whoa, dude, this is the 80s. We don't say that. Like, that's what we call dumb people. We don't say that like that, And he was just like, no, it's not happening. And so at that point, like, nothing was ever good enough. Like, from 10 years old until he passed away. I wasn't his son anymore. I was an employee. And I had a permanent bruise from 11, about that big. I had a permanent bruise on my chest until I was 19 years old, where he would just poke me all the time. And he always hit the same spot every time, all the things. And so he was just he wasn't a good dude. And he was an alcoholic until I was about 8 years old. And then after he quit drinking, it became a work addiction. Like, he traded one addiction for the other. My birth mother, I finally met her at the age of 18, and I have absolutely zero use for her as a person, as a human, as a life on this planet. I have zero use for her. I wish her the best in her life, but she's not involved in anything anywhere I do because of who she is as a person. And I tried. I gave her multiple. I gave her more chances than I've probably given anybody in my life, in my entire history. And then, so that's the first 2/3 of the song. The last part of the song is about basically who I hope to be as a parent, because who they were and who I hope to be. So, and it's called No Doubt of Mine.
All right.
And I wrote this one with a capo.
All right, Malachias.
Because I was listening to what's that song by Aaron Lewis? I don't remember now, but yeah, he used a capo, and so I was like, I'm going to use a capo. So,
all right, sir. All right,
no doubt of mine.
No doubt of mine.
My father told me, never give up, son. Give it all you got. Take your shot and run. Life won't be easy if you wanna be the one. Keep your head down and keep on running for that finish line. But that was just a dream. That was no dad of mine. Nothing that I did was good enough, and it wouldn't make the time. I did the best that I could, and he made it feel like a crime. My mama told me I was a favorite son. I could do no wrong. Life was full of fun. The girls will be lining up, and you'll be the one. Keep your head down and keep on running for that finish line. But that was just a dream. That was no mom of mine. Nothing that I did was good enough, and she wouldn't make the time. I did the best that I could, and she made it feel like a crime.
This is where the solo goes. But I can't play solo.
I told my children, never give up. You only get one chance at life, so give it all you got. I'll be here if you fall to dust you off. Get a steady stance and take aim and give it your best shot. And I dreamt that my kids would say, I love that dad of mine. Everything we did was good enough, and he always made the time. We did the best that we could, and he made it feel alright. But the truth of the story is, I'm not the perfect dad. I did the best that I could to give them all I had.
Malachias Gaskin, everyone. As we close today's show, A Warrior's Garden by Malachias Gaskin reminds us that healing from PTSD can take many forms. Through gardening, music, and faith, his personal journey offers hope and a hands-on path to recovery for veterans and others living with PTSD. Thank you all for joining us. And Malachias, we'll be in touch. So,
All right, brother.
All right. Be sure to tune in next time for more inspiring conversations at the Round Table, where heroes talk. I'm Tom Lamog. Have a good day.